On a storm-heavy afternoon in Genoa City, the kind where the clouds hang low over the Newman ranch and the air feels thick with unspoken truths, the fragile balance between loyalty and legacy shatters on the young and the restless. What begins as a tense family meeting inside the polished, intimidating walls of Newman Enterprises quickly spirals into an emotional reckoning that no one, especially Noah Newman, sees coming. For weeks, whispers about Sienna's troubled family have circulated through town, drifting from society's bar to the Abbott Mansion's living room, but no one understood just how deep the fractures ran. That is, until everything collapsed in one devastating afternoon. Sienna, normally poised and guarded, arrives at the Newman offices visibly shaken, mascara smudged from tears she tried to hide. Her father's financial scandal has exploded across headlines, her mother has retreated into silence, and the siblings she once defended are pointing fingers at one another in a bitter fight over who is to blame. Investors are pulling out, friends are distancing themselves, and the once proud family name she carried like armor has become a target. When Victor Newman coldly remarks that reputations are earned and lost by choice, the comment lands like a dagger in Sienna's chest. She leaves the boardroom humiliated, unaware that Noah has followed her. Outside, beneath the looming skyline, Sienna's composure finally crumbles. She confesses to Noah that the federal investigation into her father's dealings may lead to criminal charges, that the bank accounts have been frozen, and that the home she grew up in could soon be seized. Worse, she admits that her family has begun to turn on her, accusing her of aligning with the Newmans for protection. The accusation cuts deep because there is some truth to it. Noah has been her safe place, her anchor in a storm she has spent years pretending didn't exist. But now even that refuge feels fragile. She tells him she may have to leave Genoa City to escape the shame. It's in that moment, as tears stream freely down her face, that Noah steps forward with a resolve that surprises even him. Gone is the hesitant artist who once drifted between cities and relationships. In his place stands a man hardened by heartbreak and strengthened by loyalty. I will protect her, he says, not quietly, not as a private reassurance, but with a force that carries through the marble corridors and back into the heart of the Newman Empire. The declaration sends shockwaves. Nick Newman, overhearing his son's vow, recognizes the same fierce devotion he once felt for Sharon. He warns Noah that protecting someone in crisis often means inheriting their enemies. Victor, ever calculating, sees opportunity and danger in equal measure. He questions whether Sienna's chaos will destabilize the carefully rebuilt Newman brand. Victoria expresses concern about legal exposure, while Nikki, with maternal instinct, wonders whether love alone can shield her grandson from the fallout. Yet Noah stands firm. He tells his family that Sienna's mistakes, if any truly exist, do not define her. He insists that loyalty matters more than public perception. For the first time in years, he challenges the patriarchal authority that has shaped his entire life. Victor's eyes narrow, but beneath the stern exterior flickers something unexpected: respect. Meanwhile, Sienna's family implodes publicly. Her father's longtime business partner holds a press conference denying involvement, subtly shifting blame. Her mother refuses to answer calls, retreating behind closed curtains. A younger sibling posts an emotional rant online, accusing the family of secrets and hypocrisy. The spectacle becomes tabloid fuel overnight. At Crimson Lights, patrons whisper about indictments and betrayals. At Jabot, executives debate whether distancing from Sienna is prudent. The social circles that once embraced her now treat her like a liability. And through it all, Noah remains at her side. He moves her into a discreet guest house on the Newman property despite Victor's visible irritation. He contacts a trusted attorney, arranges meetings, and sits beside her during every humiliating phone call. His promise becomes action. But protection comes at a cost. Audra, never one to miss a shifting power dynamic, questions Noah's motives. She hints that his chivalry may mask a savior complex. Kyle Abbott privately wonders if Noah is risking too much for a relationship barely tested by time. Even Sharon, deeply empathetic to Sienna's pain, fears her son is carrying a burden too heavy for one heart. When Sharon gently asks whether Noah is prepared for the possibility that new revelations could implicate Sienna directly, he bristles. His faith in her is absolute, perhaps dangerously so. The tension crescendos when federal agents arrive in Genoa City to conduct interviews. Cameras flash outside Newman Enterprises. Reporters shout questions about embezzlement and shell corporations. Sienna freezes under the scrutiny, panic threatening to swallow her whole. Noah steps forward again, physically placing himself between her and the chaos. If you want answers, he tells the press, talk to the people responsible. Leave her out of it. The gesture becomes a viral moment, hailed by some as romantic devotion and criticized by others as reckless interference. Victor summons Noah for a private conversation in the ranch study. There, surrounded by portraits of Newman victories past, he delivers a stern lecture about strength and strategy. He warns that emotional decisions weaken empires. Noah listens, then calmly replies that empires built without compassion crumble from within. It is a turning point not just for Noah and Sienna, but for the Newman legacy itself. Victor, though reluctant to admit it, sees in his grandson a new kind of power, one rooted not in dominance but in loyalty. As days pass, cracks in the investigation's narrative begin to surface. Evidence suggests Sienna's father may have been manipulated by a rival corporation seeking to undermine the Newmans indirectly. The revelation complicates everything. If true, Sienna's family were pawns in a much larger corporate war. The possibility fuels Noah's determination. He works tirelessly with legal counsel, piecing together timelines, uncovering digital trails, refusing to let Sienna drown in guilt. In quiet moments, she confesses her fear that she brought this disaster upon everyone she loves. Noah reminds her that standing by her is his choice, not an obligation, not a sacrifice, but love. Yet the emotional toll remains immense. Sienna breaks down one night in the guest house, sobbing that her name will forever be associated with scandal. She questions whether Noah deserves someone untainted. He kneels before her, echoing his vow. He will protect her not because she is fragile, but because she is worth fighting for. The scene mirrors the grand declarations that have defined generations on The Young and the Restless, but with a modern twist. This is not about possession or control, but partnership in adversity. The climax unfolds when Sienna's estranged sibling arrives in Genoa City armed with documents that could exonerate their father, or condemn him entirely. The confrontation takes place at society, in full view of the town's elite. Accusations fly, secrets spill, and Sienna's composure shatters once more. When the sibling suggests that aligning with Noah was a calculated move for protection, Noah's temper flares. He declares publicly that their relationship is built on truth, not convenience. The raw honesty silences the room. Even skeptics sense the authenticity in his voice. In the aftermath, as investigators review the new evidence, hope flickers. Charges against Sienna's father may be reduced. The media frenzy begins to subside. But the scars remain. Sienna's family is fractured beyond quick repair. Trust must be rebuilt piece by fragile piece. Through it all, Noah's promise stands unbroken. He has faced his family's disapproval, public scrutiny, and his own doubts, and emerged resolute. By the time the storm clouds finally part over Genoa City, the landscape has changed. Noah is no longer the drifting dreamer. He is a man defined by conviction. Sienna, though wounded, stands stronger knowing someone chose her when the world turned away. The Newman dynasty, tested yet again, confronts a generational shift in what strength truly means. And viewers of The Young and the Restless are left with a resonant truth. Sometimes the boldest power move isn't corporate conquest, but standing beside someone when their world collapses. In classic soap fashion, the final scene lingers on Noah and Sienna watching the sunrise from the ranch property. The future remains uncertain, investigations unresolved, family tensions simmering, but the vow echoes with unwavering clarity. I will protect her. In Genoa City, where alliances shift like sand and secrets never stay buried, such a promise is both a shield and a spark. And as the camera fades, it's clear that Noah's declaration has ignited a new chapter of loyalty, love, and inevitable drama that will ripple through every corner of town. The days that followed Noah's public vow did not bring peace, they brought pressure. Genoa City had a way of magnifying every whispered secret, and Sienna's family crisis became the epicenter of conversation everywhere from the patio at Society to the corridors of Newman Enterprises. On The Young and the Restless, scandal never traveled alone. It dragged history, rivalries, and unresolved grudges in its wake. And now, Sienna's imploding world was colliding with the Newman dynasty in ways no one could fully predict. Sienna tried to maintain a routine. She insisted on going to Crimson Lights alone one morning, determined not to appear fragile. But even ordering a simple coffee felt like stepping onto a stage. Conversations softened when she entered. Eyes lingered. Phone subtly tilted for photos. She kept her chin high, though her hands trembled as she reached for her cup. When a local blogger posted an article suggesting she had insider knowledge of her father's financial misconduct, the damage deepened. It wasn't just about legal consequences anymore. It was about public perception, about being permanently defined by accusation. Noah found her later that afternoon sitting in Chancellor Park, staring at the fountain as if the steady rush of water might drown out her thoughts. He didn't offer platitudes. He sat beside her in silence until she spoke first. She admitted she felt like a walking headline, that every glance from a stranger felt like a verdict. Noah listened, then told her that storms expose truth as much as they create chaos. If she had nothing to hide, the truth would surface. And if her family had been manipulated, then those responsible would answer for it. Behind the scenes, tension simmered within the Newman family. Nick wrestled with conflicting instincts, the desire to support his son's loyalty and the fear that Noah was stepping into a corporate crossfire orchestrated by forces far larger than romance. He sought out Sharon for perspective. Sharon, ever empathetic, reminded him that shielding Noah from heartbreak might prevent growth. She saw strength in her son's conviction, even if it frightened her. Nick conceded that Noah's determination mirrored the best parts of both his parents: passion from Sharon, stubborn resilience from the Newmans. Victor, meanwhile, played a longer game. He instructed his legal team to quietly review the rival corporation suspected of framing Sienna's father. If someone was targeting the Newman orbit indirectly, Victor intended to identify them. Yet he kept his involvement discreet, unwilling to appear as though he were cleaning up Sienna's mess. Publicly, he remained stoic, neither condemning nor embracing the situation. Privately, he observed Noah with keen interest. Sienna's family fractures worsened before they improved. Her mother finally agreed to meet her at the athletic club. The reunion was painful, layered with unspoken blame and years of denial about the cracks in their foundation. Her mother confessed she had suspected financial irregularities but chose not to confront them, fearing the collapse that ultimately came anyway. Sienna felt anger rise, but it mingled with pity. Their family hadn't fallen in a single dramatic explosion. It had eroded slowly under secrecy. When news broke that federal investigators had subpoenaed digital records tying the rival corporation to offshore accounts, hope flickered. The narrative began to shift from greed to entrapment. Still, uncertainty lingered. Every development felt provisional, like a fragile bridge over turbulent water. Through each twist, Noah remained present, driving Sienna to meetings, screening calls, reminding her to eat when anxiety stole her appetite. Yet protection sometimes bred friction. Sienna bristled when Noah confronted a reporter who had followed her car. She accused him of escalating situations that might resolve quietly. He countered that silence invited exploitation. Their argument was sharp but brief, rooted not in doubt of each other but in exhaustion. Later that evening, they reconciled on the Newman Ranch terrace. Sienna admitted she feared becoming dependent on him. Noah responded that partnership was not dependency, it was shared weight. The turning point came when Sienna received a late-night call from her sibling, the same one who had previously accused her of betrayal. Their voice trembled with urgency. They had uncovered encrypted emails suggesting their father had been coerced into facilitating transactions under threat of exposure of a decades-old mistake. The rival corporation had leveraged that vulnerability to gain strategic advantage against Newman interests. Suddenly, the scandal was no longer peripheral to Genoa City's power structure. It was intricately connected. Noah insisted they bring the information to Victor immediately. Sienna hesitated, wary of becoming further entangled. But circumstances left little choice. The next morning, inside the formidable study at the ranch, Sienna presented the evidence herself. Victor listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he asked one precise question. Can you prove intent? It was less a dismissal than a challenge. Over the following days, alliances shifted. Victoria authorized discreet internal audits to ensure no Newman divisions had been compromised. Nick coordinated with legal counsel to assess potential retaliation strategies. Even Nikki, though emotionally invested, urged caution. For Sienna, witnessing the machinery of the Newman empire in motion was overwhelming. She had grown up around wealth, but this was power of another magnitude, strategic, relentless, almost surgical. In quieter moments, Sienna grappled with guilt. She worried that her presence had ignited a corporate war. Noah refused to let her shoulder that burden alone. He reminded her that truth-telling was not provocation, it was integrity. He also acknowledged something deeper, that standing with her had clarified his own path. For years, he drifted creatively and emotionally. Protecting Sienna had awakened purpose. It wasn't about heroics, it was about choosing where to plant his feet. As the investigation progressed, media tone softened. Analysts speculated about corporate sabotage rather than familial corruption. Sympathy for Sienna grew, especially after she gave a brief, composed statement outside the courthouse emphasizing transparency and accountability. Noah stood behind her but let her voice lead. It was a subtle shift, from shielding her to empowering her. Still, not everyone in Genoa City accepted the evolving narrative. Audra questioned whether the Newmans were spinning events to protect their own interests. Kyle Abbott remained skeptical of Victor's sudden interest in justice. At Jabot, discussions surfaced about potential competitive fallout if the rival corporation's scheme implicated broader industry practices. The scandal had ripple effects beyond romance and reputation. It threatened economic stability. One evening, as Sienna and Noah walked along the lake near the ranch, she confessed a lingering fear. What if the truth exonerated her father legally but exposed moral compromises that shattered her image of him forever? Noah answered honestly. He said protection did not mean denial. If wrongdoing existed, accountability was necessary. Love did not erase responsibility. The strength of his response steadied her. He wasn't offering blind allegiance, he was offering grounded partnership. The climax of this chapter arrived during a formal hearing where preliminary findings were presented. Evidence confirmed coercion by the rival corporation, including threats tied to old financial discrepancies. Charges against Sienna's father were reduced, pending cooperation. The courtroom buzzed with shifting perception. Outside, cameras captured Sienna emerging not as a disgraced heiress but as a resilient daughter navigating complexity. Noah's vow, once dramatic and impulsive, had evolved into something steadier. He no longer needed to declare it loudly. His actions embodied it. Victor, observing from a calculated distance, privately acknowledged that Noah had demonstrated a rare balance of heart and resolve. Nick expressed pride openly, embracing his son with a sincerity that bridged generational divides. For Sienna, the journey left scars but also clarity. Her family would require years to rebuild trust. Some relationships might never recover fully, yet she discovered inner strength she hadn't known she possessed. She also understood that protection was reciprocal. In supporting her, Noah had grown, but she had strengthened him too. The final scenes of this extended arc unfolded at sunset on the Newman ranch. The sky burned gold and crimson, reflecting both turmoil and renewal. Sienna stood beside Noah, no longer trembling under headlines. She thanked him not for saving her, but for believing in her when doubt was loudest. Noah replied that belief was never in question. In true fashion of the young and the restless, resolution did not mean conclusion. The rival corporation's retaliation loomed. Corporate rivalries simmered. Family tensions lingered beneath polite dinners. But one truth endured. When Sienna's world collapsed, Noah stepped forward, not as a reckless hero, but as a man discovering the strength of steadfast love. And in Genoa City, where power often eclipses compassion, that choice reverberated far beyond one family's crisis, setting the stage for new alliances, new conflicts, and a love story tempered, not broken, by fire. In the weeks after the courtroom revelation, Genoa City settled into a fragile calm, the kind that longtime viewers of The Young and the Restless know never lasts. The headlines shifted from accusation to analysis, from scandal to speculation about corporate retaliation. Yet for Sienna, the quiet felt unfamiliar, almost unnerving. For months she had lived in survival mode. Now that the immediate threat had eased, she was left alone with the emotional wreckage. Her father, though spared the harshest penalties, faced a long legal road cooperating with investigators. Her mother began therapy, a small but meaningful step toward accountability. Family dinners were tentative, conversations careful. Apologies were offered, but forgiveness lingered just out of reach. Sienna attended one such dinner without Noah, determined to face her fractured relatives on her own terms. The evening was strained yet civil, a sign that while the collapse had been devastating, it was not irreparable. Back at the Newman ranch, Noah sensed the subtle shift in her energy. She wasn't as panicked, but she was more introspective. Protection, he realized, could not be permanent armor. If he hovered too closely, he risked preventing her from rediscovering her own footing. So he adjusted, stepping back when appropriate, standing close when needed. It was a delicate dance neither of them had rehearsed. Victor observed the evolution with quiet scrutiny. During a private breakfast meeting, he told Noah that strength lies not just in defending loved ones, but in knowing when to let them fight their own battles. It wasn't quite praise, but it wasn't criticism either. For Noah, it felt like acknowledgement, an unspoken recognition that he had earned his place at the family table not through inheritance, but through character. Meanwhile, ripples from the rival corporation's exposure continued to spread. Industry publications dissected the scheme in detail, revealing how calculated the coercion had been. The story no longer centered on Sienna's shame but on systemic corruption. Public sympathy tilted decisively in her favor. Invitations that once disappeared began to reappear. Yet she hesitated to accept them. Re-entering society felt performative, as though she were expected to smile on cue. One evening, at Sharon's encouragement, Sienna agreed to attend a small gathering at Crimson Lights, a neutral, comforting space. The atmosphere was warm, conversations genuine rather than probing. For the first time in months, she laughed without tension tightening her shoulders. Watching her from across the room, Noah felt something shift inside him. His promise to protect her had begun in crisis, but now it transformed into something steadier, a partnership rooted in mutual growth rather than emergency.